Hey, what's up gamers, it's your boy Church of Caboose and welcome back to my channel. I thought for this video we would try talking a little bit about stats, trying to get those triple 100 stats. These things matter, and this topic I think is probably useful for a few reasons. One is we got a whole lot of new players coming back, and two, with having the Stasis, the Void, the Solar 3.0 and soon to be Arc 3.0, these stats seem to matter more than they did in the past. And then lastly, the change to resilience has been rather significant. So having the high resilience is more important than for just Titans now. Everyone should want to have high resilience because of that 40% damage decrease. So you get more resilience against incoming damage, which is in basically protective lights and some other kinds of mod stuff all the time instead of for a few seconds with charged with light. So if this seems like it's an interesting topic to you, make sure you click the like button as well as subscribe to my channel. So let's go ahead and get on into this. Alright, so these stats matter a lot. Just in case you're new, I'll give a quick recap. Hunters, the higher your mobility is, the more you can dodge, which that plays into things like your smoke grenades and all this other stuff and reload, so you want to be able to dodge as much as possible. For warlocks, the higher your recovery is, the more often you will get these rifts. And then for titans, the higher your resilience is, the more you will get your barricades. They'll recharge back faster. And then for all the classes, the higher your resilience is, if you get to the tier 10 where it's 100 or more, which ideally you just get to 100, then you'll get a 40% damage resistance to all damage all the time. And that's pretty important. And when we come to PvP, people tend to really want to have as many high stats as possible because it gives you more of an advantage, especially if you're going against people that don't have those stats. Say you're playing a slower game of Trials, well, whoever's getting the more of their abilities is going to probably be the one that wins. And then lastly, with Classy Restoration or maybe any other seasonal mod that comes up for the remainder of Destiny's lifespan, you might be able to really take advantage of having more of your class abilities. If you dodge with Hunter, you get Radiant. Titans, it's the whole you throwing your hammer, and then Warlocks, you got the Rift thing. Oh yeah, and then Titans is using your barricade, which works fantastically with Lorelei. So that's why you want to have these high stats, and then you get more of your abilities. Now, what stats you want to have the most of kind of more or less depend up to you, although there's kind of a few things that are more generally like, yeah, this is what you want. Some of it's going to depend upon the builds and things that you like, but in general, these days people want to have max resilience, right? So tier 10, 100. They want to have max intellect, tier 10, 100, and then max recovery, especially for the PvP folks. Some people will say screw it because of the super tiering, because some supers charge up longer than others, and go with max resilience, max recovery, and max discipline. And then ultimately there are going to be people that just do what they want and just kind of have their own thing. So whatever it is you want to go for, you want to do activities that give you high stat armor. And currently it would seem doing the master the new dungeon duality, the master version, and just farming out that boss checkpoint is the best way to go. The reason for farming the boss checkpoint is because you get 2 drops instead of 1 every time you complete it. Yes, the first time there's a pinnacle drop, and then after that it's all just the base power. So right now they drop at 1060 or 1560, excuse me, after the first clear. But then you can infuse those things, and so that works out pretty well. And if you're in PvP anyways, a lot of the time your power doesn't matter a whole lot. And if you're doing PvE stuff, with some exceptions like Grandmasters and maybe like Master Raids, power to some degree won't matter enough necessarily where having that little dip is going to make a big difference. So those are some of the things to go after with doing these high armored. And I really suggest using the master version of duality for this. One, is because it always will drop high stat armor, and 2, because it is artifice armor. This gives you an extra slot to put in a various mods. So if you're on your helmet, for example, you are able to slot in 3 normal mods, but that extra one is for seasonal mods. So say you've got hand cannon targeting and you want to run hand cannon targeting, maybe increase your grenade throw or something, although that's on gauntlets. I don't know, some other thing on the helmets. And then you want to have an additional targeting mod for maybe a sniper rifle or something. You could do all three of those, assuming the energy works out, with an artifice armor piece. Right now, with there being a lot of class item mods, having an artifice class item works out pretty well, because you can put on a couple of those instead of just two, or maybe have an extra one with utility kickstart. That's what I like to do. And that just should help you guys out quite a bit when you're encountering these grandmasters and just throwing on like dexterity and loader mods and all that stuff when it comes to PvP. Because like right now, I think energy-wise, it would work out to have a pulse rifle loader, a sidearm loader, and sidearm dexterity plus some mod like extra resilience or something like that. I believe that works out just off the top of my head. And you can do that on gauntlets, but only if you have the artifice armor, which you can get from duality. So what you want to do is just get a duality checkpoint or be with someone that has it. Because how it's going to work is you'll load in with the person that has the master duality checkpoint. You all three load in, or at least one other person, because when you're loading into that checkpoint, the person that has it is going to need to change characters, because if they complete the fight with the character that has the checkpoint, then they no longer have the checkpoint. So you fly in, maybe when you're loading in, that person that has it changes characters, send out another invite, you rejoin up, you kill the thing, maybe in one phase, however long it takes you, and then just do that over and over. So when you kill the boss, you're about to orbit, the person with the checkpoint changes characters back to the character with the checkpoint, you regroup, load in. While they're loading in, that person with the checkpoint then switches to a different character and then joins in for the fight, and you just trade back and forth like that. I was able to get a bunch of clears in to farm for these armor pieces without there being a whole ton of time sucked in. So it should be a great way for people that don't play Destiny full time to get this good armor and stuff like that. So other ways to get some high armor would be the season pass. The season pass, especially once you get to the upper echelons, closer to season rank 100, the armor is guaranteed to drop at a high stat roll. However, you don't know what it's going to be. And there is a way for all these high stat armors now to kind of control a little bit what you might get. If you look on your ghost, you can slot in a mod that will make it when an armor piece drops, it'll be guaranteed to have at least 10 of whatever mod type you pick. And now there's been people that have done some experimenting, and they have found that when you slot in the intellect mod, you're more likely to get armor pieces with high intellect, as well as resilience and recovery. And that's just for some reason how it is. There was someone that tried explaining it to me about exactly in complete detail about how and why that works. And to be honest, it went right over my head. I am a true Titan. And I was like, you know what? Bottom line is, run the intellect armor mod on my ghost. I will probably be getting stuff, or have a good chance of stuff dropping with high resilience and high recovery, and so far that has been happening. On my own quest to trying to get these high armor stats for my own self, the best I've been able to get right now is tier 10 resilience, tier 10 recovery, and tier 7 intellect. Will I be able to make those 3 tier 10 at some point? I don't know. Maybe it could happen, but I have now, for the first time ever, have 2 tier 10 things on the character, and I intentionally sought after making it happen. Now, it is worth noting these different subclasses like Void 3.0, Stasis, and Solar 3.0, they do have the different aspects or fragments of those aspects. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, where you can choose multiple that will do things like plus 10 to discipline, minus 10 to discipline, stuff like that. So you can have those different stats can change if you have different stat takeaways or pluses on different subclass types. For example, I right now only have tier 10 recovery and discipline on, or not discipline, recovery and resilience on my Titan on Solar 3.0. It's not that way on Void 3.0, and that could just be because of the aspects that I have on the fragment things that are maybe, you know, plus and minusing stuff in different ways that I have set up on Solar 3.0. And that is something just to keep in mind. So if you're trying to get just one set that will never ever change, that might be kind of hard to do. This is a huge RNG numbers game, right? Because yes, we do have armor mods you can put on that will give you increases to the different areas. So if you're trying to rely on that, the most you can get if all your armor pieces had the same mod on would be +5 out of 10 to that one stat area. And you definitely don't want that to be intellect, because that's half of the energy you get. Intellect mods are 5 out of 10. So if you are trying to go for it that way, I'd maybe look at resilience or discipline. Both those are 3 energy pieces on your armor, which is not a whole lot, and that can help quite a bit. The last thing to look at when you're trying to get these high stats would be to use mods such as Powerful Friends and Radiant Light. Both these mods give a pretty hefty increase to one of the stats. So Powerful Friends gives you, I think it's +20 maybe. It's significant. It's 20 or 40, whatever it is, it's a lot to mobility. And then Radiant Light is pretty much the same thing, but to strength. That's how you can have some people that have armor stats that are well over 100. Now the last thing I wanted to point out when you're doing all of these things trying to get these stats to line up is it can be really tricky to figure out, hey, what will my armor piece be if I was to equip this and use the mods and stuff like that? How would it all lay out? Bungie added in a pretty cool quality of life thing. When you're inspecting an armor piece, at least if it works just like me, and I assume it does, I didn't change any default settings or anything, on the bottom right of that armor piece when you're inspecting it, so you look at your gauntlets, it will show at first all your overall stats with the 0 to 100 numbers on that bottom right. If you want to click or hover over the little icon right below it, you can change it just to see what that specific armor piece is. So if you're trying to see, hey, how does this new piece of armor I just got from the Master Duality dungeon play into my overall stats? You can just hover over that piece, inspect it, and then see in that bottom right what happens to it. And then you're like, okay, cool. So if I throw on this mod, which will add +10, this is what happens. If I want to use Radiant Light, this is what happens. And that can help you get a good idea of what to go for. And sometimes it can get really, really annoying if you're trying to do this really hard. I at one point had, I think it was 399 stats in different areas. I was like, oh, come on. I just need the +1 in 3 different, and I don't have it. So it can get pretty frustrating. So don't worry. I also don't necessarily suggest just deleting armor, especially artifice armor, that you're like, I don't think this is a good stat roll, because it could play in just well enough with other good drops where it works out with your stats. You just do not know if it's going to be worth keeping or not all the time. Sometimes it's pretty obvious, right? Like if you want nothing to do with mobility, then an armor piece drops and almost all the stats are in mobility, well then absolutely scratch it. Like, not worth it. If you're wanting to have discipline and it drops meh discipline, well then it might be worth keeping, because you don't know what other armor pieces are going to drop with what stats. And that, hey, we got a vault, so you can throw some stuff in the vault. And I would just maybe keep things on your character though, because then it's easier to use the whole bottom right screen thing when you're inspecting an armor piece to see what's up. Hopefully this video helps you guys out. I know there's a lot of new players that see all this stuff and like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. So hopefully having kind of the short and skinny about these stats and how players might be getting them and how to look and see, hey, how do I spec this stuff out is pretty helpful, I hope. So please like this video, comment down below if you are aware of other sources of high stat armors. Currently, my understanding is we only have Duality, perhaps Master Duality. I think maybe Master Grasp of Avarice, when it's the week of that dungeon, might do it as well. Maybe in general, so please let me know down below if you know for sure. And then we've got Master Vault of Glass, I believe will also do it, as well as Master Vow of the Disciple, I'm pretty sure is high stat armor, but that rotates. I think the raids, they rotate. So 1 week it'll be high mobility, 1 week it'll be high resilience. And so that's one way you can target farm some of these armor pieces to get those high stats, is if you know what week is dropping what high armor from the Master Vow of the Disciple raid, and you're like, hey, I need myself some resilience. You're like, ooh, it's resilience week. Boom, hop on in there and just see what happens. All right, hopefully this helps you guys out. Let me know down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Have a great week. Subscribe to my channel, and happy grinding, y'all.